This is a frame from one of our recent projects, and in this video I'll walk you through how I got this look as a one-man band production. We'll talk about the lighting setup and the equipment, and you'll see how I was able to use small and lightweight gear for maximum impact. So let's get into it. Welcome to the channel. My name is Robert and I'm a director of photography and I run a full-service production business based in Charleston, South Carolina. I've been in the creative field for a long time, and here on the channel we focus on small to no crew production and using minimal gear for professional results. This job was a one-day production with a few different components. First was to capture B-roll in a commercial kitchen that would be used over top of an interview. Next up was to shoot stills of fully prepared and plated food. And lastly, I needed to shoot an interview. So first up when I arrived on site was to load in some gear so I could get started right away in the kitchen. I've shot in busy commercial kitchens like this before, so I knew I needed to keep things light and minimal in terms of gear. You may have seen me do this in previous videos, but I'm just using my phone to get a general reading of the overhead lights. This helps me gauge and set my white balance accurately. I love a good handheld look, but my easy rig in this scenario would have been too cumbersome and would have just gotten in the way. I like to keep things as minimal as possible, as often as possible. So as usual, I relied on my monopod, which I talk quite a bit about on the channel, and I used it for camera support for all of these kitchen scenes. I've talked about this monopod a few times before here on the channel, but I love this thing. For a long time, I just discarded them as something that mostly wedding shooters used, and when I finally decided to pick one up a few years ago, I haven't stopped using it. It goes with me every time I leave for a shoot, and for me has been one of those rare pieces of gear that I wish I had purchased a long time ago. So this iFootage Cobra 3 has been great for me. You can see it easily supports my FX6 with a V-mount, but I've also used it with larger and heavier setups without any issues. I love this thing for a few reasons, but mainly because it saves my back from fatigue, and also because it's never in the way. I'm able to stand directly behind it to operate the camera. It takes all of the weight of the camera and allows me to get some nice, subtle camera movements as well. For lenses here, I'm just using the Sigma 24-70. I love my 28-135 kit zoom. It's an older lens, but I use it all the time on projects. But in a setting like this, where I'm moving around constantly and there's lots of stuff happening around me, I didn't want something that big and bulky in such an active space. And the 24-70 gave me plenty of reach to get all the coverage that I needed. I started making small talk with one of the chefs, and she was telling me how she had just returned from a trip to Italy. I know some of you watching are new to video production, so one tip I can give you here is not to be afraid to direct your subject like I'm doing here to help you get the shot that you need. You should never just be a camera nerd pointing a camera in a subject's face and then just hoping to get a reaction that gives you an interesting shot. One thing I like to do in scenarios like this is to first set up my frame and then be ready to record, and then just engage in conversation with my subject. You should be ready to roll at any point, but genuinely be listening to what they're saying. This helps break the ice, as oftentimes people are understandably uncomfortable or nervous to have a camera pointed at them. But by talking to them, it helps them to forget about the camera and focus on something else. It also serves to help you capture more candid moments that just naturally occur when you're having a conversation with someone. I can remember way back when I first started in my career and really admiring people that had the ability to do this. But when I first started, it didn't come naturally. I was always too focused on my camera and just dialing in all of my settings. And I found this to be a learned skill over time. And as difficult or awkward as it was for me in the beginning, putting this into practice each time you shoot will sharpen that skill for you, and you'll eventually reach a point where operating the camera just feels like an afterthought. One thing that's remained constant throughout my career is that I've always been expected to wear multiple hats. And I think that holds true for just about everyone in the creative field now more than ever. These days, it seems like clients expect just about everything out of one person. And it's just assumed that if you know how to operate a camera for video, you must also be competent at shooting great stills, while also being able to get great sound, be great at lighting, and oh yeah, be a drone operator too. So if you're a videographer or whatever you call yourself these days, even if you're just shooting and then handing off the footage, you should be thinking about the edit while you're recording and plan your shots accordingly. Whether that's directing the talent in some way or just simply holding on a shot for a few seconds longer than you think you need. Being mindful, conscious, and proactive like this not only helps you stay focused and present in the moment, but it goes a long way in helping to add value to the project that you're working on. And if you're just handing off the footage, an experienced editor will know whether or not you've set them up for success by shooting for the edit. Next up, after shooting in the kitchen, was to move on to capturing stills. Unfortunately, I got kind of rushed through this part as we needed to be out of this room by a certain time. So it was a bit of a scramble to come up with a setup that would allow me to get some nice results. I have a strobe kit that I love and I've used for years, but unfortunately doesn't see a whole lot of use these days. And I really would have wanted to utilize it here, but there just wasn't enough time. So I made do with what I had on hand and used the gear that I already loaded in. I was so rushed that I wasn't able to get much BTS footage of my setup. We've shot food in the past, whether that was in the studio or on location, and it's funny to me how years ago I remember there were guys that strictly shot food. That's all they did, and seemingly made a really good living at it too, since food photography was known to be expensive to produce. I remember how that always used to blow my mind a little bit, since I've never done or focused on just one thing in my career. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but I've just never had that luxury. But kudos to those who figured out how to make it work by just doing one thing or offering just one service. That just isn't a world that I live in or know anything about. And maybe that's just the level of production that I work in, or maybe it's a lack of knowledge on the client side. So I went from shooting B-roll in the kitchen straight to this dining area and had all of 10 minutes to set up for some good-looking food shots. It wasn't at all how I would have liked to shoot it, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I've been needing a Pelican 16-15 for a long time. I need it for both my travel and local work. And I'm always chipping away at my gear and my process so that I can be as streamlined and keep things as simple as possible. So I finally recently picked one up with the intention of building it out as a light kit that would give me just about everything I would need to get a good image. I've taken it out on a few jobs, and I'll be diving into this more in a future video, but that's what I leaned on for both the food stills for this job and the interview, which we'll talk about next. So for the interview, you guessed it, challenging space as usual, which you can see in this wide shot here. We needed a quiet space with minimal foot traffic, and this is what was available to us. I never want to fight the ambient light levels when I can help it, so I used the light coming in through the doors as the main motivation for the key, and the background treatment as well. As much as I can, I like to keep things light, and that was the case here. The main key ended up being the Moelis G200, set to a really low output percentage, so I could have easily used the X100 here. I've been loving the trend in lighting fixtures as they continue to get smaller, lighter, and more powerful. I have a set of the Nanlite Forza 60Bs, and I love them. I use them all the time for little splashes of light. They're easy to transport and mount just about anywhere, and they're a simple but effective way to help up the production value of your interview shots. I feel like shooting interviews wide open can be a bit of a crutch, forgetting what clients would consider to be a professional look. It's not often that I shoot interviews wide open, and when I do, I always try to add some other elements to the composition to help complement that shallow depth of field look. Things like playing with color contrast or lighting the background to add some additional dimension to the frame are always helpful. So to help me do that in this shot, I use the spotlight mount for the Forza 60B. I've talked about this before on the channel, but this thing's been great, and I use it all the time in interviews. I like that it's much easier to carry around than a full-size spotlight mount. And the vast majority of the time, I've found that the Nanlite 60-watt fixture is sufficient for helping me achieve an elevated look. I didn't want to do a traditional hair light on the subject here, so I used the second Forza 60 with the Fresnel to help further motivate the key side, which just added a slight edge to the subject's arm and shoulder. Regarding lenses, I shot this on the Sigma 35mm prime. I would have much rather used the 50 prime, but that's a lens that's somehow still not in my kit. I love the 35, but I've run into this a few times where I would have much preferred to use a 50 over it, so I'll be keeping an eye out to see if it pops up on the B&H deal zone. The main key here was just a simple 43-inch umbrella. I use this a lot for both travel and local jobs. I think umbrellas are often overlooked for video, but they've been a go-to for photographers for a really long time, and for good reason. I found this size to be perfect for a one-person interview. It's basically a book light since it bounces into the white side of the umbrella and then comes through some diffusion. So with your light being doubly diffused, it gives a nice, pleasing, and soft look. Super easy to set up, transport, and travel with. Simple, no need to overthink it. Thanks for coming along with me on this one. I hope you got something out of it. Let me know in the comments what you found most helpful or if you have any questions. See you in the next one.